So today is a video suggestion of a drawing course. I haven't taken like drawing courses since I was in high school. But I do love to draw, and you know, it's always good to do things because you love it, not because you're good at it. Because the more you love something, the better you get at it. It has been a while since I've really drawn things. You know, life gets in the way of stuff that you love. But I wanted to show you guys some basic lessons I learned in high school for 3D drawing, and shading, and that sort of thing. So let's get started. I like drawing with these pencils. I know you're technically supposed to draw with other pencils, but I don't know. I like mechanical pencils. I have like full containers. Yeah, it's googly eyes. I have full containers of drawing supplies, like literally full containers of drawing supplies. Full containers of drawing supplies. This one I like. It's like a 3D astronaut thing. It's cool. The dust is bothering my nose. It's a cool little container filled with lining, markers, and pencils with different thicknesses. Like this is a B. Every pencil has like a different thickness to it. It's good for shading, to know which thickness you need for your pencil. But yeah, I am using this as a substitute ruler because I cannot find my ruler. I had a flexible ruler, but I don't know where it went. So sometimes it's good to grab a substitute, right? Grab a substitute. So when you're drawing 3D, you always want to have kind of like a horizon line. So for what I'm talking about is when you're drawing like 3D landscapes, you want to have a horizon line and you want to have a point to where everything kind of goes to. The easiest one to draw, what they taught us in art class in high school, is to draw like buildings and like a 3D landscape to kind of get your mind to understand the idea of like 3D. So you always want to choose a point for where your horizon line is going to be. So horizon and a point where everything's going to be focused. And what you do with it is you start drawing your street lines. So this is going to be a wide street, but that's fine. Try street lines. So like how the 3D goes. And then you start drawing your building. So everything you want to draw, you want to have connecting to this point for the stuff that's going kind of with your eye line of view, like this. It can be a bit complicated. So I'm putting a building on this side of the street. I'm putting a building on this side of the street. Building on this side of the street. And I'm going to do kind of like building. So the building, you always want the other lines to go straight up. Straight up. Kind of straight up. And you can kind of go, and you can erase things, you know, we all technically make mistakes, so erasing stuff is perfectly fine. It's how you learn. So that's going to be the building's head. Markers are so much harder to draw with when you're first starting out, so it's always good to use pencils. Pencils do help when you have to, you know, erase lines and such. So, this building, yep, and we're gonna have kind of continue on drawing the thickness of our building. Let's just say I want it to be thicker. Yeah, forgive me if my drawing's not that great. Like I say, you draw because you love it, not because you're good at it. And as you get better, you practice. Practice always makes everyone better. No one starts out perfect. Everyone practices, right? So, for this drawing, I kind of want to add a roof. So, beginning of a building, kind of the walls leading up to the point, and forgive my bunny, he jumps this wall here, and then I'm going to kind of add in a roof. So basically adding in a roof can be a little tricky, which is always why you want to have an eraser with you. So this is just the basics of learning how to draw 3D. There are some people that get really good at this and they don't need the basics anymore. So it's always kind of dependent on your skill level. But hey, everyone starts out as the basics, right? Everyone starts out with the basics. So, give yourself some leeway. Let yourself start out with the basics. Because once you start out with the basics, you learn to get better. So, kind of like basic, you know, a child's drawing of a house would be to kind of get it to be 3D. See how it kind of follows the visual point where your eye sees the kind of the 3D, like the horizon line. Yeah. So basically it's drawing lines to kind of meet together at the point so that you give it more of a 3D feel rather than 2D on a page. You know what I mean? You can also kind of do that through shading, lines, all that stuff, but this is just kind of the basics of what they teach you when you first start out drawing and you're trying to do things that are 3D. So let's add in little windows, kind of going with our lining to make everything fit well. As we added windows. Adding in windows. And you can kind of visually fix any, you know, mistakes that you do. It's completely normal to make mistakes. So, just adding in window panes, kind of drawing the lines based on what we started with. Just add in window panes. So kind of, you know, like that. If that makes sense. That makes sense. So you always want to have the basic dots focus on. So your lines join to meet it, to give it a proper kind of 3D feel to the page. Your horizon line is this thing right here. If I can learn to point at it, it's your horizon line. This would be our street lines. The house lines all meet, other than the ones that go up in, different directions, because not everything points towards the 3D line. So. It's basically beginnings of learning how to draw kind of 3D shapes to create like a 3D street. I drew my windows a bit big, so adding in a door would be impossible. Well, I'd have to erase it, but it's not exactly impossible, but you get what I mean. So that's kind of what that ends up like. Okay. And when you're doing shading, I'm going to use the same page so I don't waste my papers. But when you're doing shading, like I'm going to add in a little forest line on the horizon. It's not going to follow the 3D model because I'm not trying to show you that now, but draw like trees. I'm drawing all sorts of evergreen trees because they're the easiest to kind of draw into a forest line. And kind of, it's far away, so it's okay if you kind of scribble the outlines of it. But kind of like, trees. And when you're shading, you always want to use kind of like, they sell it where it's like this gummy material. This is what happens when you're left-handed. Get pencil everywhere. We use this like gummy material where you can kind of shape it to the shape that you need, and use smudge to kind of make the shading, darker in certain areas and such. Shading gives things its own kind of 3D feel, depending on how you shade. You can shade to make something look very flat, but you can also shade to make something look 3D. So you kind of, these aren't shaded to make them look 3D, but you fill in the kind of the shading line, and then I use my finger when I smudge to kind of darken. I've always used my finger to smudge stuff ever since I was like a kid learning how to draw. Used to drive my art teachers crazy. I used to always come out with fingers looking like this, literally like charcoal finger. But I like smudging like that. And if you're trying to give it more depth, kind of darken some of the ridge lining. To show that some of the trees are in front of each other, some of the trees are not. Kind of like that idea. I'm not really that great at it, but kind of like giving it more of a depth, where you kind of shade darker spots for when the trees kind of are in front of each other versus when they're behind. And you can kind of get away with it a little bit looking more blended because it gets far off in the distance, but that's the whole idea behind shading. You kind of, if you ever look at when someone draws with like pencil art, like they draw a person's face, you can always tell where they use shading to kind of give like the depth of where the face curves, where the skin goes into shadow, like kind of like this with my chin and my neck, where you see it go into shadow. If you draw just the chin and just the neck, but you don't give any shadow, you don't really give any depth, so the image tends to look 2D. But when you start giving the depth of shading, the image gets, richer, more popping off the page, more lifelike. So. That's kind of the basics of shading and, 3D modeling. I also kind of have these guys to show you. They're pretty cool. I got them from IKEA. I like them. But this is helpful to kind of learn how to draw how like a hand bends. Unfortunately, this hand has its thumb just here instead of, the fact that people's thumbs can do this. So you kind of work with it. You can draw a lot of, it's meant for like being able to draw like a closed fist, where someone's thumb is bent inward, pointing, like that sort of thing. Solid wood. With wooden hinge joints, which is kind of interesting. And there's no felt at the bottom, so it sits without moving as much. You can make the hand stick up a middle finger at yourself. I would not do that. Someone in IKEA messed around with all these hands and they actually stuck up the middle fingers. It was kind of funny. Very adult humor. Or teenage humor, I guess. But yeah. Kind of teaches you the basics of how to draw a hand. I would show you guys some of my drawings, but I would have to find my art books. If you guys want to see my drawings, just comment down below, and I can do like a little ASMR video of showing me my drawings and talking about them, describing them and stuff. Other than that guy, I also have this. Kind of teaches you how to draw, the body, and how the body sits, how the knee joints bend and the foot positions, that kind of idea. How you can see how to make the knees bend properly when you're drawing a character, how to properly lay out the arms, the hands. No, I wouldn't draw hands like this, but hands are the hardest thing to draw for a lot of people, but it teaches you how to kind of line up the body symmetrically, or not really symmetrically, how to like line it out properly so everything kind of matches in length. Some people have different length arms and legs and torsos than others, but it kind of gives you the idea of layout of drawing a person, I guess. Also, no felt on the bottom of this one, but also from IKEA. They had female ones too, which was funny. I found that. I was like, okay, it's a body. But yeah, kind of get the idea of how to draw the torso, the arm length, everything to kind of match itself. I remember in art class in high school we had 2 students volunteer, and they kind of either stood in the middle of the class or sat in the middle of the class, and everyone tried to draw what they look like in perspective. And just the idea of like, the guy with the chair had his leg up on the chair, so getting the leg defined properly and the other leg that's standing. Kind of scale models, I guess. Models with their clothes on, of course. It was high school, because some modeling classes are different. But yeah, it's a fun little lesson. Lining pens are probably my favorite thing. You can have thicker ones for thicker lines, where you get like a thick brush stroke, and then you can have thinner lines. They have the same kind of, they tell you kind of like the sizing of the lines. Anyways, this one's a bit thinner, so you're gonna have a thinner brush stroke, that sort of idea. So like if I outlined the building, with a thinner brush stroke. It'd be easier to kind of show the detail of what you're doing. But when you outline it with a thicker brush stroke, everything kind of looks thicker. But you got what I mean. So this looks like closer to the lines, and the thinner lines look like they're further away, so it kind of gives you the ability to add little details and such. Sparkly Sharpie. It's gold. No, that one's technically, actually, but it sparkles. I love this thing. But yeah, that's kind of the basics of drawing things and kind of adding depth and whatnot. Wow, that is a weird drawing. I don't even remember what year I drew that up. Hey, look, it's the sketch of you. It's so well drawn. Oh my god. That video was funny. Anyways, the sketchbook, I'm pretty sure is from Curry's, which is an art store that I went to at a specific mall, but it moved to an area that's a little bit more out of my way, so it's hard to visit. Curry's is an art store where you can buy like everything, literally. My lining pens are actually from Curry's, same as the pencils, which is fun. They are a bit expensive, and you know, sometimes buying expensive art supplies is a little harder when you're young, so you use what you can. Dollar store supplies are just as good when you're learning how to draw. It's not about the art, pencils, and the price of your art supplies. It's about developing the skills. So, you know, you do what you can, right? So, that's my little beginner's art lesson. Love you guys. I'll see you later. I hope you have